Welcome. Take It Up with Jessica Lee. I'm here with Michael Schipper, who is the senior marketer at Google. He's in the charge of the growth marketing for Chrome Enterprise, which
That's
includes the browser and the Chromebooks. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Jessica.
I love how the Chromebooks are everywhere in the classroom. So K-12 is very dominant as the device for online education. So congratulations on being a major player in that space. Let's talk about the history of education a little bit. It's like, I remember when I was a kid doing homework, there was no laptop, there was no online programs, and then suddenly now my kids, they need a laptop, they need to access online also to do the homework. It's a drastic change.
Yeah, well, growing up in England, I think having a pencil and notebook was considered advanced technology in the classroom. But yeah, definitely in the last 10 to 15 years, having tech in the classroom has really meant that teaching has changed a lot as well. And Chrome and Chromebooks have had a lot of success over the last 5 or 6 years in that space. And in 2018, 60% of all laptop and tablet sales in the US from kindergarten to 12th grade were Chromebooks. And what we found is, Chromebooks have been great for replacing that legacy technology in the classroom, and teachers are able to have a much more communicative relationship with their customers and teach in a really different way.
So Chromebooks been very successful in the educational sector, but you're actually trying to get more enterprises, different sectors, to adopt this technology.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they've been very successful in the education space, and what we want to do is encourage businesses to adopt both Chromebooks and Chrome browser more, so they can have a very secure and fast experience for their employees online. When it comes to some of the top concerns we hear from IT people, one of those is security. And we know that if their employees fall victim to a phishing attack or a malware attack, then it can end up costing business thousands of dollars, and they get locked out of their own data. Chromebooks help to mitigate that, and so does Chrome browser as well, through the operating system that we have on Chromebooks, which is Chrome OS, which is updated every 6 weeks, for example. So you always have the freshest and most secure version of operating system on your device. And also, because our Google engineers are doing the latest security patches, and they can see all the different threats which are coming from the web, they make those updates, and you don't need to actually install antivirus software on your Chromebook because the operating system automatically has that in place.
Okay, let's talk about marketing. So that's your domain expertise. You must have seen a lot of the changes over the years, and especially being in an innovative company. What are some of the very cool marketing strategies or solutions that you've seen you want to share?
Yeah, well, I can talk about some of the changes. So I've spent around 15 years of my career on product marketing, and certainly it has evolved from what it was when I started. I've always worked in the digital and software space. I think it's been really interesting and stimulating, a lot of competition as well, and I think that's helped to shape what product marketing is. So when I think about product marketing, sometimes I think about product marketing as a building that's under constant construction, and the building being the products that you have. Particularly as a software product, it's always going to be evolving, there's always going to be refinements. And as a product marketer, you should focus on how you continue telling the story of your product to your audience, iterating on that message, and making sure that the value proposition is connecting with your audience as well. So I think that product marketing is constantly about fine-tuning that message. And also I think that you also need to be very wary of what your competitors are doing as well, because the differentiation that you have in your products quickly becomes eroded nowadays. When I think back to my career 10 years ago, a product was launched, you would acquire users, and you would be able to maintain that difference between your products and competitors for a good amount of time. But I think that window has been shrinking and shrinking, particularly as more competitors come into the market. If you look at some examples such as Snapchat stories, and then you have Instagram stories, and what made that product different becomes eroded. And so you have to reinvent what that product is.
So you have to maybe use new ways of communicating the message, like maybe virtual reality as an option to talk about the stories.
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be a good way of doing it. I think that you always have to go back to the audience and understand what your user base wants and look at baking that into the product. And I think as a product marketer, very much part of your job is understanding what your customers want, getting those insights, feeding them back into the product team or the engineering team, and then helping to iterate the product in that particular way. There are some other ways which I think that marketing has evolved over the last 10, 15 years as well. I think one of the obvious ones is mobile. So, when I worked at Google in London, I was working on the team that helped to put out advertising onto smartphones, which was a new platform for us. And it turned out to be a huge opportunity and a huge market. But I think as a marketer, one of the opportunities that mobile has afforded me is being able to reach an audience at all different times of the day in the particular moment when you may not have had access to that audience before. So as an example, what we found when we run some of our advertising campaigns is that you can reach IT executives on mobile gaming apps. And it turns out there's a large audience there, and it's a good way to be able to connect them with a brand message or a consideration message, for example. In the last 10 years, maybe that wouldn't have been an opportunity that I could have pursued as a marketer. And so it's definitely opened up new windows of possibility for me there. Some of the other ways that I think marketing has evolved, particularly for product marketing, is you're able to make use of new formats such as video. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity which is still being underused by marketers today. And I think that video has capacity to tell such a rich and compelling story. And there are lots of studies that show that when a user engages with video, that it has a great uplift in terms of awareness and consideration versus other kinds of channels that you're using. So I think as part of an integrated campaign, video has to be one of the different channels that you're using.
Yes, I love video, and I prefer actually to go and learn whatever it is that I'm trying to figure out via like YouTube. So it's a great tool to educate, and I know that there's a lot of education that needs to be done when you're trying to engage with new buyers and getting them on that journey to understand the benefits and the use cases.
Yeah, and I think that in 2020 and beyond, we'll see video being used at all different parts of the marketing funnel. So I think traditionally it's been an awareness tool, but I see that it's becoming more useful for demand, and there are more video formats which are being launched which make it more appealing for someone who works in demand marketing, for example. So I think we'll see a lot of that. And then culturally, I think that one way that marketing has changed is the approach that businesses have to diversity nowadays. So when I think back to when I first started working in marketing like 10, 15 years ago, diversity wasn't a top consideration. It was something that we thought about, but not something that we baked into every campaign. And nowadays I think that to be a successful marketer and have a successful advertising campaign, you have to reflect the society and the audience that you want to engage with. It just makes sense to do that. And I think it's good for business. I think it's good for the brand, and I think it's important to be able to bring marketing up to the same standards as other different kinds of media in society.
Well, that's smart, and it's also showing progress in making diversity is actually a goal in the campaign planning and how you're going to reach your audience.
Yeah, and at Google, it's something which we are encouraged to think about with every kind of campaign that we run.
Well, let's talk about lessons learned, because I think that's also very interesting. You know, sometimes you're trying something and you realize it could have done differently, or it could have turned out a lot better if you had done it somehow in another way. Anything you want to share on that lessons learned journey?
Yeah. There are some examples which have worked really well, some examples which I think could have gone better. So first of all, I'll talk about some campaigns that I think have been really good and which I've admired in the market. So I like marketing which provides some kind of usefulness to the person consuming it. And you may have had this experience where you're on your phone and you're checking your news articles and you click through to something that looks interesting, it's a catchy headline, and then you're hit by a paywall when you go to the site, and you can maybe read the first paragraph of the article, but you can't get beyond that, and you end up clicking back. You don't have that knowledge that you wanted. But I recently saw an ad campaign that Hulu have been running on Ad Age, and Hulu have provided the payment for the particular article that you want to consume. And so you click on the article, you read it, and there's a message at the bottom saying Hulu paid for this, so you're able to read it. And it had a marketing message as well. And so I just thought that was a really good way of a brand removing a barrier for me as a user, but also introducing their message in a subtle way. And so I got a lot of value out of that. So I expect that that's something we'll see more of. Something else which I think has been really good over the last couple of years is how video advertising has become less obtrusive to users. And I think that YouTube has really helped to lead the way in that. So when you've watched videos on YouTube, you've probably seen that pre-roll ad which appears before the video you want, but then there's a skip button as well. So if you don't want to consume that content, and it's not a brand that's interesting to you, then you can skip to it and just watch the video that you want. But what really excites me is another format which is now available to advertisers, which is called YouTube bumper ads. And these are 6-second videos which appear before the video, but they're very short. And I think that the shortness of the video really encourages a lot of creativity from the advertiser. And so I saw a Subaru campaign, for example, where they were talking about how spacious the trunk of the car is. And how do you do that in 6 seconds? There are a couple of ads that they had. The first one, they showed a really full trunk, and it was packed of all different kinds of camping equipment. And then you heard a voice come out from the trunk, and it turns out to be the family's grandma that had been put in the back of the trunk along with all the other equipment, just showing how big it is. And she was perfectly comfortable, I'm sure. And then the other example was they had a completely empty trunk, but they had a dog that had been on a hike with them, and it had this really large branch in its mouth, and it showed how wide the trunk was. And all of that you're able to do in 6 seconds. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 different shots. Right. But it works really well, and so it does show you that even in a short amount of time you can have a lasting impact.
To engage with people, get further information, actually. I think that one area which can be improved, and is something which my team thinks about a lot, is webinars. I think that webinars, getting those right is quite difficult. Do you do something which is going to be shorter, like 10 minutes, and just give you a taste of what your product is about, or do you do something which is longer? And then what kind of format do you have? Is it going to be one-on-one to the camera? Is it conversational like this? I think that there's no right way to do it, and I haven't seen a campaign yet which has really nailed it and been super successful. So I think that it has a lot of potential, but getting it right is something which is something that marketers can aspire to over the next 12 months. I think that with data giving you that ability to do a lot more personalized marketing, you will then be able to offer what is it that the viewer wants. Interactive content, short videos, and even like you're saying, is it just a straightforward talking point? Are we talking about conversational type? And the more choices that they can have in consuming the content they prefer, I think you'll get a higher conversion.
Yeah, I think looking at the data and having that feedback loop is really important. I also think it's important not to drown in the data as well. I think when you launch a campaign or do any kind of marketing, you will have your set of different metrics that you want to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do is we divide those into both primary and secondary metrics. The primary metrics will be maybe one or two things which are most important for you to define the success of your campaign. So if it's an awareness campaign, for example, perhaps your metric is, what is my brand uplift as a result of people being exposed to that campaign? Maybe a secondary metric would be, what is the engagement with the content? And so that's one way of prioritizing how you think about different kinds of data. But I don't think you want to get lost in it, because once you have too much data and you're looking at too many data points, then it can make it difficult to understand what the impact of your campaign is.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's exciting ahead for you.
Mm-hmm.
2020.
Yeah.
Just around the corner.
Yeah. Well, in our team, we are focusing very much on how to make Chromebooks and Chrome browser useful to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a lot of exciting device launches ahead for Chromebooks. Recently, we announced something called Chromebook Enterprise, which are devices specifically designed for business, and they come with what's called an enterprise upgrade, which is something that unlocks all the business capabilities of a Chromebook. So that includes advanced security protections, it includes different ways that you can manage your Chromebooks as well and integrate them into your existing system as well. And so if you have a business that has both Chromebooks and other kinds of devices, then you can integrate them seamlessly and manage them all together, which is what a lot of IT teams want. But also we know that there are businesses who don't have Chromebooks, but they also want all the goodness that Chrome has to offer them. So, increased security protections, really productive and seamless way of accessing information on the web. And so Chrome Browser is ideal for that, and we have a product called Chrome Browser Cloud Management, which enables you to, as an IT person, deploy Chrome to your staff across your organization and manage it from a single interface. So you could have a company with 100,000 employees. Instead of having them install Chrome individually thousands of times, you can make that deployment for them and push it out across their machines. And then you can set different policies and different ways of them to work, so everything is customized to how they would want it.
Very convenient to manage that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's exciting ahead for you then. Lots of work in promoting that also and helping the sellers.
Yeah, that's right. We also work very closely with different partners as well. And so we're working on different ways that we can enable their sales teams with more information about Chrome, so they can speak with great knowledge and expertise about Chrome as a product.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Michael, to talk about the Chrome Enterprise business. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. It was really good being here.
There you have it, folks. Take it up with Jessica Lee, Michael Schipper from Google.